Welcome back to the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. Nuggets of information presented by Tighten Up Training, where we listen to the feedback from our members of Tighten Up Training and provide solutions to your team. These are bite-sized 10-minute episodes with my co-partner, Chad Coatney. And today's topic of discussion is how smaller moving companies can best utilize TUT when they feel like the focus might lean more towards medium and larger sized moving companies. And I've got some things to say on this, but Chad, why don't you go ahead and give me your input on it?
Well, I guess my original input is I think back to when I was a small moving company and how it was so hard to get good information to grow my moving company. And the biggest thing that helped me grow my moving company was hanging around medium and larger moving companies and listening to what they did and implementing it in my own business. I wouldn't look at it as a disadvantage if it's not catering towards a super small moving company. I would look at it as an advantage. What can I take away from this and implement now in my company? I mean, there's tons of stuff on marketing and sales that can exponentially grow your company. I mean, you don't have to spend a ton of money on marketing. There's a lot of videos in there on things we did when we were first starting our companies. You know, you can put yard signs out. You can start by doing furniture deliveries for furniture stores and then use that as a review collecting tool and to get more referrals for actual larger moves. As far as the sales portion, I had no sales process. The biggest part, I mean, once I started implementing speed to lead, getting to every lead within 5 minutes and a follow-up process for our customers, our numbers went through the roof. Our conversions went through the roof. So if I was a smaller company, I would just be salivating at all the information on Tighten Up Training and trying to implement as much as possible in my business. And while you're a smaller company, if I could go back in time, I would be documenting my processes and procedures as we go and build them out and tweaking them as much as I can. And as you know, you can add those to Tighten Up Training now if you have the right package. But I wouldn't look at it as a disadvantage. I think, being the smallest guy in the room is an advantage to only you. So I would just kind of look at it from a different lens if I was that person.
Yeah, I think there's always a frame that you can spin on no matter what size you are. You know, if you're bigger, you can say, yeah, we're the biggest, we've got the most resources, sure. But when you're small, you can spin it as we're small. I'm the owner. You're going to do business with me. Or, you know, I've got a small team that I keep very close ties with, that I have good relationships with, not like the big guys that don't even, where the owners don't even know the names of their movers and drivers. We're going to get a lot of dedicated attention because we want to grow our business. We're hungry for referrals. Every single move matters. We want to get a 5-star review on Google, on Yelp, on Facebook, on Nextdoor. We want you to make Reddit posts about it. That's, by communicating that to your customer, a lot of customers want to work with the smaller companies. And I look back when I was smaller, 2014, 2015, sometime around there, I didn't even know that calling leads was sales. I hired a receptionist for $10 an hour to pick up the phone and answer it when somebody would call in or to call out on web forms. And we would make one attempt. If they didn't answer, we weren't texting them. We weren't emailing them. We weren't even calling them back. We might leave a message and hope and prayed that they called us back. If we didn't book a job right there on the spot on the phone, we weren't trying to sell. We would basically just give out the price. We weren't putting it in a CRM. Had I had the foundation and used the fact that I was small, that I had a personal relationship with everybody in my office, to actually focus on learning how to sell and realizing that this is a sales role, not a receptionist role. And if we laid that foundation from the beginning, our growth would have been exponentially just magnified. And when you are small, you've got the opportunity to sit down with each of your team members. If you've got 5-6 guys, maybe you're running 1 or 2 trucks, that's the best time ever to lay a fundamental foundation with your training, with your processes, to be documenting everything that each person is doing. And even if they're wearing multiple hats, because it's a lot harder to pivot and to reset the foundation once you're really big. You might have 100 employees but it might be a house built out of straw with no real foundation. Really hard to put a foundation under that at that size, because you have to get so many people on board. Every employee that you add adds an exponential dynamic of relationships from the other employees. I forget the exact number, but there's having 4 employees versus just having 10 employees, there's so many more interactions and combinations and permutations of interactions with those people. Whereas if you've got, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys, it's just a lot easier to walk them through every single little nuance of the company so that you can start to scale from there with good habits and good fundamentals with your organization and grow into a bigger company that has a strong foundation, that does things right, where good habits are there so that you don't have to go back and fix it when it's really, really hard to make big sweeping changes across your company and change the culture, change the training methods, change the whole entire experience on how people do things. So really, honestly, being small is a blessing. You can spin it to your customers from sales and marketing and say that you'll give them that extra time and attention and focus. You can spin it with new hires, saying that you get to work one-on-one with the owner and that this is going to be a very personalized approach to things. And then you can set those habits for the future so that you ultimately can replicate that culture as you add people to your team.
Yeah, that's some really good points. I love that. When it's a smaller group of guys or a smaller team, it's so much easier to do nice things for them and know about their lives and, be able to give them your phone number so they can text you and really like build that tight knit family culture that you want to kind of extend once you grow and set the tone on how we do things. It's a lot less group of people to manage. Another good thing is your expenses are going to be a lot lower than, say, my expenses. I know it costs me like $225,000 a month to run my company. So you have super low expenses, super low overhead. You probably, if you're a newer company, you're probably not paying your guys as much as we're paying our guys. So you can charge less. You can undercut the big dogs, as much as I hate saying that, but you're kind of like the best option. The smaller company is the best option for the customer as long as you do the job right, but you could do it for a cheaper price for them. And you're going to have higher profits than us, and you need less jobs. So definitely I would just kind of rewire the way I'm thinking about it and think about like, I have the advantage here, steal all the nuggets you possibly can in the business, implement it into your company, and you're going to make money.
Yeah, best time to set up those systems and processes is when you're small, because it's a whole lot more difficult to go back and fix something once everything's in motion. You've got that momentum. And I see a lot of companies grow by accident. They might be in a good market at a good time and they might hire some good guys initially that are all doing different things. They overall provide a pretty good experience and they fill a void in their market. And they all of a sudden go from, a guy in a truck to, a $6 million moving company in 3 years. A lot of problems come with that fast of growth if you don't have the right foundation to do it right. And, by setting that foundation, creating a family environment, as opposed to just having so many employees that they're all just a number, allows you to keep a lot tighter grip on things. Your fixed costs are going to be lower when you're small, so that, your margin of error and your need to hit, 100 moves a month isn't always there. You can spend more time doing the spot checks. You can spend more time working one-on-one and getting to know people's families and their wives. I mean, you look at some of these big companies that have 300 employees and the ownership, heck, half the management doesn't even know all of their names, let alone their wives' names and their kids' names and, what they like to do for fun and having, barbecues and things like that, that really cement that culture. And, it's hard to change bad habits, especially ones that have been going on for several years as you've accidentally grown. Where in the beginning, it's the perfect time to create those habits that you want that will ultimately lead to much more sustainable growth.
Yeah. And I would say this too. The biggest thing that helped me, because I struggled the first 6 years of my moving career and wasn't making any money, was wearing all the hats and had no idea what the heck I was doing. I was too hard headed to ask for help. I thought I knew everything or whatever it may have been. But everything changed for me when I went to a mastermind in Scottsdale, Arizona. I got around medium to large moving company owners and we talked the whole weekend about moving, and it just opened my eyes that I was doing everything wrong. I restructured my whole business and I was able to 5X my business in 2 years. So I could have saved 6 years of heartache if I would have gotten the right room with the right people or had a great system like Tighten Up Training. That's why we created it, because we're trying to save people from struggling the way we were. So if you have a chance and you can afford it to get to one of our conferences or our masterminds, I would highly recommend it. It pays for itself tenfold. I know it seems like a big investment at first, but it's going to cost you a lot more not to make that investment.
Yeah, I remember my first mastermind that I went to, first conferences. It was like the beginning opening scenes of The Wizard of Oz, where everything's in black and white. And when I got in that room and I was actually hearing from people speaking my language that had been where I had been and laying out a roadmap for me, it was like all of a sudden the color came on. It's like somebody flipped the switch and it was like, oh my gosh, I've been struggling with these things for 3, 4, 5 years. And all I have to do is this. All I have to do is change my receptionist to a salesperson. All I have to do is, create this dispatching process with how we schedule people. All I have to do is track my cost of goods sold like this and my fixed costs like this. And it was just like, boom, like within 6 months, we were a completely different business.
Yeah. A big one for me was like knowing my numbers. I had no idea. That was like the biggest, scariest thing for me. And, I was a big micromanager on everything, just trying to make sure everything went great. And I had to control everything. And I got to make sure we're not having unbillable hours here and we're not wasting material here and yada, yada, yada. And now I can just look at a nice report and I can see that my percentages are in line and I know my business is healthy, or I can see that, hey, we got a problem here. Now we can go dive into that. So that's a big thing too, is really getting to understand your numbers and knowing where they need to be.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for tuning into this little micro episode of the Grow Your Moving Company podcast, where Chad and I go over some of the topics that our Tighten Up training users bring to our attention. Hopefully we can help out some people with these. And until next time, tighten up.
And real quick, I would say anybody else, if you have questions, you're on Tighten Up training and there's something missing there that you need or a question you need answered, feel free to reach out to Faith or Jess. And we will make sure we get it on here in the video and answer it for you.
Perfect. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. If you would like to learn more about any of the sponsors listed on this show, want to apply for the next Moving Titan retreat, or interested in owning or working for Two College Brothers franchise, drop me a line at wade@twocollegebrothers.com. Moving out. Have a great day.